is going to be a grand slam home run.
Swing and drive. Belton right. Welcome to the show.
Bonus episode here of the Call Up, where we're going to give you a little Saturday edition because there are so many promotions and call-ups across Major League Baseball. Of course, we're here to talk about the future stars of Major League Baseball. He's Jack McMullen. I'm Aram Layton. And before we get into anything, if you haven't listened to the Davis Schneider interview yet, please go check that out. I wouldn't even be offended if you closed this episode out and went back and listened to the Davis Schneider interview. I'm not kidding. That was one of my favorite conversations, if not my favorite conversation I've ever had with a professional athlete. But that aside, Jack, we have a lot of guys to talk about that got promoted, and I'm excited for your thoughts because I just put it out like not that long ago before we're recording this, but I'm really excited to get your thoughts on Davis because I feel like there's a lot of like thought processes that you will really appreciate from him.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to listen. I haven't listened yet, but I'm probably not going to listen back to this one because I'm on it. I might after the fact, but that one will take precedent for sure. I know he's going to be good because he's got that mustache for his MLB debut. Like usually you want to be looking like the best, most dressed up version of yourself for your MLB debut. Like you may get a haircut if you have time during the day. If you're on the road, you probably don't have time. But like this guy was, you know what? My personality is going to be mustache. And I think it's a really good look.
It's awesome when he talks about it. Like he wanted to shave it and they're like, no, you literally can't. You have 21 pumps. You cannot change a thing. And it was funny to hear him break that down. But the reason why I mentioned that interview real quick too, is we have some guys that are going to get promoted to the big leagues. And are they all going to accumulate 1.5 FWAR through their first 14 games? Probably not.
I was going to say yes.
No, they are. Yeah. Like that, the pace that he is on is historic. And I think sometimes we see a Davis Schneider come up and ball out, and then a Jasson Dominguez who, we'll see what he ends up doing. And that's what we're here to talk about. We're going to talk about Jasson Dominguez, Austin Wells, Ronnie Mauricio, not to mention a ton of others that were promoted to either AA or AAA. But sometimes the big name guys come up and struggle, and it's like, oh, well, I'm watching a guy that I didn't know much of at all balling out at the big league level, but this prospect that is supposed to be the next best thing isn't performing. And I think most of the people that listen to the show understand that there's a lot of variables at hand, but it's going to be a position for Jasson Dominguez and some of these other guys that are getting called up. Like, I don't think they're chasing results. Of course, you would love to go crazy and you'd love to perform, but for a guy like Jasson Dominguez, like there's going to be a learning curve. I think, Davis Schneider is 24, kind of perfected the kind of player that he wants to be and how he can succeed. And he discusses that in the interview, but like Dominguez is still figuring that out. And that doesn't mean that Davis Schneider is better than Jasson Dominguez. There's a reason why Jasson Dominguez is a top ranked prospect, but Davis Schneider right now is better at being Davis Schneider than Jasson Dominguez is at being Jasson Dominguez at the big league level. I think at this moment. That said, he probably could end up going crazy and we'll say, oh, well, there's the Martian.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually going to happen because I find September 1st to be a very interesting time where the best prospects are typically the ones coming up on bad teams. And the Yankees, believe it or not, are a bad team in Major League Baseball right now. Their wild card chances are out the window at this point. So if you're calling a guy up to play every day, it's going to be a big time prospect. You really don't see the big time prospects called up for teams that are still in the contention window. So while they could turn to an Aurelvis Martinez or an Addison Barger Toronto as a September call up, instead it looks like it's going to be Spencer Horwitz, and they have Davis Schneider in the fold because they got to win ball games.
Yeah.
And while the ceiling of Barger and Aurelvis might be higher, Horwitz has a 450 OBP.
Yeah.
Schneider was OPSing 950 in AAA.
Yeah.
So these guys are riding success at the AAA level, and you're banking on them to provide you a little bit of immediate success at the major league level. Thankfully, Davis Schneider has given Toronto a lot of immediate success, which is interesting. Another guy that I think fits that we will talk about and get deeper into, Alexander Canario. He's not Pete Crow Armstrong. You know why? He's probably better suited than PCA to be a seventh inning pinch hitter and finish the game in a corner.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that he's a better prospect than PCA, right? PCA is a top 10 prospect for us, but at this present moment, Canario coming off the bench helps them. And I think that's an important note, is like somebody like Davis Schneider just leaning into that role, knowing I might play once or twice a week at the big league level, getting his hacks in and swinging for the fences. Like that's what he's doing. He's trying to make an impact and trying to help his team win one way or another, walking or trying to drive the ball, but it's different roles, right? Where Jasson Dominguez, who, by the way, I look like a bozo now because I was just saying, no way they call him up. And sure enough, they bring him up. I'm here for it. I didn't expect them to, put, I would say I would not have expected them to put their center fielder and Harrison Bader on waivers to save a little bit of money. That was not what I expected. I'm here for it though. I would much rather watch Jasson Dominguez get big league at bats than a lame duck in center field who's going to hit, free agency after this year. But that said, Dominguez is going to be playing every day when he's up there, just about. And it's going to be to learn, to develop, and to get his feet wet, which I think is the interesting side of it, because it seems like aside from high A, at every stop he's had, low A, there was an acclimation period. Double A, there was an acclimation period. And then, triple A, I think it was kind of the same thing. He kept rolling.
There's 9 games.
And he rode it right into a hot streak. And I think double and trips are kind of the same thing now, where the big adjustments are low A, double A, and the big leagues. Those are the 3 big markers nowadays. And I think it's cool that the Yankees are getting this learning process out of the way, because that expedites maybe the process of him being able to help at the big league level next year, where I think they're planning on having him be a big part of that outfield next year.
Yeah, which is fascinating, man. Like this guy and Canario, I think, is the one that we ID'd in the top 10 prospects, where Junior Canario has bumped his ETA by 3 years this year. Dominguez, I was still thinking 25, and now it's end of 23. So I really applaud Jasson Dominguez for speeding that up. And I think a lot of that has to do with his approach in Double A, where, yes, you mentioned there was an acclimation process. We saw that last year where he stunk for like a 5-game sample in the playoffs. But we also saw it for the first month of this year, or the first month and a half of this year. And then he really started to not hit the ground running, because hitting the ground running is doing it right away. He really started to, get running after kind of walking out of the gates. Dominguez is really impressive to me, because this was, and I said this on the Just Baseball show, he's not a guy that I think any baseball fan that hears The Martian and the future superstar for the New York Yankees would think, oh, this guy's chasing a billion pitches and hitting a bunch of bombs. That's not Jasson Dominguez, man. Like, Dominguez is patient, and he will spell these cold stretches by walking his way out of them.
Yeah. And he's not a big whiff guy, to be honest. Like, the only reason why I think we saw him strike out and why the strikeout rate's somewhat inflated is that you have a guy that was kind of overpowered in the beginning and just overmatched a little bit by Double A pitching, and then adjusted, as so many young hitters do. It was his age 20 season. I think he might have still been 19 at the start of it, or actually just turned 20 just ahead of the season. You look at his last 45 games, that's including Double A and Triple A with that cup of coffee he had in Triple. 362, 432, 543 slash line, Jack, 10 walks, 18% K rate. What stands out the most to me, 87% zone contact. You point out the patience, 22% chase rate. Those are all the things that you love to see. And don't get me wrong, the tools are crazy. Like, there's really fun tools there. We're talking about a 90th percentile exit velocity of 106 miles an hour. That's really good. That's not The Martian. That's not like, who is this alien life form? He's a really tooled up prospect. But I love your point. I think his tools get oversold. He's a plus runner and he has plus power. Don't get me wrong. But there's guys like that. I think the tools get upsold and the polish gets undersold. And this is a 20-year-old that's debuting in the big leagues. And I don't think, it was not an expectation, but I don't think it's ridiculous. And that says a lot about Jasson Dominguez's polish and development.
Yeah, his savant page is not going to look ethereal. Like, it's not going to look like O'Neill Cruz or Ellie De La Cruz, where you see 100th percentile and then second percentile in some things. That's just not what you're going to see. I love the point you make there. And, what I will say, what I'll counter with, is zone contact is harder in the big leagues.
Of course.
Pitch selection, harder in the big leagues. You made a good point. Like, double and triple, they're kind of the same thing, especially in pitching. I bet league-wide OPS is lower in double A than
Davis just said triple was easier for him.
Yes, I believe that too. And, such as the base in the International League in 2023, I'll tell you, is a guy that has watched over 100 games in the International League this year, the pitching across the board is bad. Every bullpen has 4 or 5 relievers that have an ERA at 9 and are walking 8 guys per night.
Yeah,
I have
and
no idea what's going on there.
ABS apparently is making more of a difference than I thought. I wrote that off, but I've had so many different people now say it to me, players, pitchers, hitters, that they feel like it does shore it up a little bit.
Yeah, Tuesday through Thursday does suck with that full ABS system because there's no malleability of the strike zone. Like Greg Maddux would be walking 6 guys per 9 with the ABS. I'm telling you, because that guy was on the corners. Any pitcher that is on the corners, which is any good pitcher ever, they're going to get hosed because the zone does not adjust to them. Now, they're making some adjustments. I think they should scrap the full ABS as soon as possible and then just fully adopt the challenge system. I think the challenge system is awesome. But yeah, man, I think Dominguez, the reason he hit 415 and the reason he was getting on base at a 530 whatever clip in AAA for those 9 games was probably because he was just so ridiculously comfortable.
Yep.
Now we get our first opportunity to really see him be uncomfortable every single plate appearance, because that's the big leagues, Bob.
And I'm excited because I think he's going to hedge that, as you mentioned, with the walks. I'm excited to see the defense in all 3 outfield spots. Yeah. Assume he predominantly plays center field. And then, the one thing I want to see him do is get the ball in the air a little bit more. I think as he's worked to make more consistent contact, it's been more line drives, which is fine. But that's turned into a little bit more ground balls than you'd like to see. So that's something to monitor there. But I mean, overall, this is a really fun player, a guy that I think fans are going to, they already have fallen in love with, but I think they're really going to like the way he plays. He's not I got to watch him in the Arizona Fall League up close. I've seen him play in low A and in double A. He carries himself like a guy that I don't think you would expect. And by that, I mean, he's been, celebrated as the best thing since sliced bread. Everybody's asking for his autograph everywhere he goes. Like he has been, there's not been very many prospects with as much clout. And I love the way he plays the game. I love the way he carries himself. I think he plays hard, and I think Yankees fans are going to really like that. And he doesn't give you that superstar vibe in the negative manner. I think he has the moxie of a superstar, but I think he gives you the attitude of a grinder.
So do you think the clout went away a little bit in the last year?
Yeah. And I think that part of that is what makes it all the more impressive to me, I think, because Dominguez had unfair expectations he didn't ask for, right? He has,
so you say people love him, like he's got tons of fans. They loved him after one Instagram video when he was 17 years old in the height of COVID.
Yeah.
Like chances are they were going to boo his ass out of the Yankees organization at the end of 2021.
There was, and it was loud, right? Because if the positives are loud, if you don't meet expectations, the negatives are going to be even louder. And that was another thing that really impressed me. We talk about players being able to handle New York, and that's a wrinkle in this thing, man. And I think he's built for it. He's heard the overrated, comments. I'm sure he's heard this guy's going to bust and whatever it may be. And there's that negative, there's a negative attitude that people have towards Yankees prospects in general, where it's like, oh, of course, this Yankees guy is being overhyped. And I think there's merit to that. Of course, New York media covering certain guys, and there's always going to be a little bit of extra hype to Yankees prospects. But I thought that anything outside of him being a top 25 guy to me, I think is overbuying the struggles and almost trying to overcompensate for what was a silly amount of hype at the beginning of his professional career.
Yeah, I think so. Another guy with maybe 20% of the hype is Austin Wells, who I think Yankee fans are still excited for.
Yeah.
But Wells is making his big league debut. It's going to be tough to watch him catch, I feel like. But his bat, and I made this point, like, man, this tandem of Higashioka and Rortvedt, anything to take viewers' eyes away from that tandem is good. And the fact that Austin Wells can provide just a teensy bit of excitement there is like pretty enjoyable. I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I am. I do have my concerns about the defense, and you mentioned that. And I think so far in AAA, and I know stolen bases can largely be on pitchers as well, but his catch and throw skills aren't the best. I don't love the arm, and opponents in AAA in 22 games were 30 for 33 on stolen base attempts. So, that's going to be something to monitor in a game where, guys are stealing more than ever. Is that something that's going to be too much of a detriment to Austin Wells? The areas where he has undoubtedly improved is his blocking, and the overall receiving has improved. I mean, he's definitely just, you're not getting the whiffs or the egregious mistakes or things like that. Like, I think he can handle the game fine. In terms of a pitcher, I don't think he's going to lose their mind throwing to him or worry about spiking one and that he can't block it. I think he's improved all those things. I just wonder if there's only so much you can improve, and the catch and throw and some of the receiving aspects there, he might just be what he is. I think if he defends well enough in terms of blocking and in terms of, making the plays you're supposed to make and be a relatively average framer, I'm interested to see how that develops. It's really all about the bat. He just needs to not be a total liability back there. And there's plenty of catchers that, you'd be shocked at how bad they are at limiting the running game this year, but have provided value in other ways. And for Wells, I think leveling up the blocking and continuing to do that. And then, of course, as you mentioned, it's going to be the bat. I think injuries have slowed him a little bit, because this is a guy that went nuclear, in high A. I loved what I saw all the way back to his Arizona days and catching him on the Cape. You saw him put up good numbers in Double A last year after going nuclear in high A, and then banged up this year. And I do think that that's affected him. So I don't know how he feels physically right now. I know the EVs have been down a little bit, and I really do chalk that up to some injuries and being banged up, because the approach is good. The power has been much better in the past. And I think that's held him back this year as a guy who likes to hit the ball in the air pretty consistently from the left side.
Yeah. All right. Jumping to Ronnie Mauricio here with the New York Mets. This guy is up. It's been a really long time coming for Ronnie Mauricio. He's got a billion plate appearances so far in AAA this year. He's played pretty much every day, and I think he's leading the IL in hits right now. He's among the minor league leaders in hits right now. So Ronnie Mauricio, it's nice to see Mauricio, Alvarez, and Brett Beatty in the
Beatty back up too. Yeah,
Beatty back up.
That was a surprise too. That was another one that we thought maybe they'll manipulate the service time a little bit. Nope. They let Beatty come right back up after he worked on some things, and I applaud the Mets for that. That's the one thing with Steve Cohen, man. I do buy what he's selling when he talks about some of the things that he says about prioritizing player development and things like that. There's no reason for Beatty to spend the rest of the year in trips, and I think now he can work through those things in a more calm setting at the big league level where it's not fight or flight. And Ronnie Mauricio, I like that he's up there now with those guys, because you're still hoping that Mauricio can be a piece for you. And we talked about him as a trade chip. And yeah, he might have been one if the Mets were competitive, but they're not. And they have some spots to fill, including corner outfield. And you have some guys that have been underperforming. You have some interesting wrinkles to your team. You also have second base that's been underperforming. You traded Mark Canha. Starling Marte's been struggling. If Ronnie Mauricio can play left field, which is what he's been playing a lot more of, and where I think he's going to see a fair amount of action, I think, is left field and second base.
Yeah.
He can endear himself to the big league team next year, a team that wants to be better, but I don't think is going to sell out on winning. I think this is a great opportunity for Ronnie to not only prove that he has improved as a hitter, as a guy who is, the chase rates are always going to be high, but they're palatable, or at least fringe palatable at this point. The contact rates are great. The power is ridiculous. If he can play left field and play second, and I talked about that, like Chris Taylor super utility type role. Yeah. He may end up carving himself a nice role in this organization instead of being that trade chip that we floated him as.
So can I read you the Mets lineup tonight for his big league debut? It's Nimmo leading off in center. Lindor is the two-hitting shortstop. Jeff McNeil as the left fielder. Alonso at first. Vogelbach DHing. DJ Stewart, a.k.a. 2004 Barry Bonds, in right field. Francisco Alvarez catching, Brett Beatty at third, and Mauricio batting ninth and playing second base. So McNeil to left, Mauricio to second. I think this can be a very similar lineup to what we see on opening day next year, to be totally honest. Like Vogelbach off, obviously, Stewart. We'll see what happens there. But if they don't move Alonso, I think this is, kind of what that lineup looks like opening day next year.
And I think that's fun. And I think it's kind of, this is a dude that probably has a little bit more pressure than some of the others, because Dominguez, it's like, you're 20, work through it, see how you do. There's really nobody standing in your way. For Mauricio, it's like, hey, we've been pretty doubtful of maybe the ability that you can have to translate at the big league level. I think that they've kind of passively said that by, not promoting him for this long, especially when the team was in fight or flight mode. They went to Vientos, they went to other guys. I think there's a level of pressure for Mauricio to prove that they should bake him into the 2024 plans. He is just 22 years old and he has youth on his side, but you talk about how many games he's played and things like that. I think there's a level of, hey, if he's going to do it, like he's probably either going to do it now or never. I think that there's a balance to that. I think he's going to have some rust to shake off, but at the same time, you're going to have to just roll with the punches with this guy. Like there's going to be some hot streaks where I think he's putting up numbers and getting as hot as anybody on the planet. And that's what happens when you can hit the ball 116 miles an hour. But I think there's going to be spurts where he's expanding the zone, he's stretching, and it's a frustrating watch. And it's going to be interesting to see how it translates. But I think there's a realistic scenario where he's a Chris Taylor type, and that's a hell of a ball player.
It is a hell of a player that made a lot of money this past offseason. And there were other teams aside from the Dodgers that were willing to give him a lot of money, borderline more money. So no, I mean, that guy has some serious value. Mauricio has also proved exponentially more than the next guy that we're going to talk about. Mauricio, I think a point here is, yes, the Mets and I guess the prospect world has doubted Mauricio for a couple of years now, but also, he's proven absolutely everything he's needed to prove in AAA. He was one of the best hitters in AAA this year. So there's no point in saying, we need you to develop more, because he just says, what do you mean? Look at my numbers in 2023. A guy that doesn't have that is Kyron Paris, who is a September call-up for the LA Angels.
Yeah.
Does Paris have a game in Salt Lake, or was he in AA the whole time?
AA the whole time.
And so he makes the jump.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. He has to be
added. I'll say it so you don't. He has to be added to the 40. Yeah, you'll get into the roster thing. I'll say it so you don't. You said it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be bad. And I know that, you kind of said something like that on social media and you received some pushback. Again, we're all for guys starting their clocks. Kyron Paris was punching out 30% of the time as a 21-year-old in AA.
Yeah. How
is that going to get better? Like that might climb to 40% for the last month of the season.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. And, I've been wanting to see him continue to develop defensively, and he's been splitting time from second and short. And, is he going to be more of a second baseman? Is he going to be more of a shortstop? We'll see how they decide to use him there. Obviously, he's ultimately probably going to end up playing more second if he can prove that he belongs. But we're talking about whiff rates that are high. And that's the thing. Like I put out a tweet that basically said the Angels, the Ohtani dream is dead, but the Angels are still punting on development, referencing the point that, the Angels don't need to rush guys anymore. They don't need to go all hands on deck and try to catch lightning in a bottle with whoever they can bring up. I'm excited for Kyron Paris. And again, like these are these tough spots where we always want to be happy for the guy that's called up. But I think about him in terms of his development, and you look at a lot of the best teams, a lot of the teams that develop players the best, they usually slow cook their prospects, their offensive prospects. It's something that just tends to work out well. Of course, someone like Ronnie Mauricio, he is what he is, and you don't need to see much more. Kyron Paris, I know he's been around for a little bit, but he's battled injuries. He struggled in the fall league this past year, and I felt like this was kind of his, I wouldn't say breakout, but it was kind of him breaking into a level of prospect relevancy. I think there's always been intrigue there, but he had a 109 WRC plus in high A last year and finished strong in double. This year, he's played the whole year in AA, really started to tap into more power, stole more bases, walking at a really high clip. I'm looking at that guy. I'm like, okay, this guy's interesting. He's on my radar now, someone that I want to see continue to develop. I think just because you have to add him to the 40-man doesn't mean that you should skip a step in development for him here, because I think this is a guy that's a patient hitter. I'd love to see him work with a smaller zone in AAA and see if shrinking the zone for him and his approach can allow him to whiff less, because we're talking about a 74% zone contact rate, a 17% swinging strike rate, which are both major red flags, and which is why I was concerned about the rushing of him. And yeah, Angels fans did not agree with me on that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if they agreed with Perry on wavering everybody, like literally everybody waving the white flag. So, yeah, man, It would also be nice to see him in AAA because that place is as much of a confidence booster as you can find in Salt Lake. Joe Adell hit a ball 510 feet. Trey Cabbage hit couple balls 500 billion feet. But
yeah,
Trey Cabbage is generational. Sorry.
Oh no, he's one of one. But they were saying like, oh, this is, Salt Lake's not a great place to develop hitters. Like, sure, but this is a dude that's extremely patient, that likes to get deep into counts. I want to see, one, how that works against more advanced pitchers who throw more strikes. Yeah. Two, how that works with a tighter zone where it may work in your favor. And again, you can continue to leverage your patience. And three, he hasn't had that many professional at-bats, right? You look at 2021, what was it, a total of 40-something games? He was banged up. 2022, he plays 103 games plus the fall league. And then we have 2023 where he's played 113 games thus far. So people are like, oh, he's been in the minors for 4 years. Like, not really. He's been in the minors for like 2.5 years. And that's a guy that I think he could be really good. I want to see him slow cook and develop.
You know where I think the pushback is? I think the pushback is with, oh, well, it worked for Neto, right? Yeah. Why isn't it going to work for Kyron Paris? Zach Neto and Kyron Paris are two very different baseball players.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, Paris, you have the swing and miss concern, as you mentioned. So I hope he catches it. Like, I hope it just, sometimes guys get up there and it just works. And maybe he can be one of those guys. It's an opportunity to learn. And I think that was the one counter argument that I understood was like, okay, you can put him in AAA and, he goes nuclear there and maybe just leans into, just trying to do damage. Or, you send him to the big leagues, maybe some things get exposed and he can work on some things there. It depends on where you align philosophically. Sometimes I agree with that approach, but not if you're blatantly overmatched. And I think there's a legitimate chance that he's blatantly overmatched. Regardless, I'm excited for him to get an opportunity. And Angels fans deserve to watch Kyron Paris more than, some random quadruple A guy that's 30 years old that they're going to plug in there, So at least there's some more intrigue there.
Unfortunately, I think it's borderline likely that he gets overmatched as opposed to a real possibility. Jumping to a couple other guys, and we'll go more rapid fire through these. I'm blanking. We mentioned Hunter Goodman and Ceddanne Rafaela, but just barely.
We talked about them a fair amount. Just real quick, I would say, Rafaela, that's one of the craziest defensive dives I've done, and the arm has gotten stronger at short. I think he can play in elite center field. He's made one of the best catches I've ever seen. And then at shortstop, he's a heck of a defender too. I'm thinking Kike Hernandez with, I think the median outcome is Kike Hernandez, but you're hoping on a little bit more offensive upside. That's what I think you're hoping for there.
That's a damn good median outcome.
I think so. Maybe slightly above 60 percentile outcome there.
Yeah, I guess. Are you more like, I don't know. Kike is kind of weird because Kike was actually a good defensive shortstop.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking before, when he was playing good defense at multiple positions and, giving you like flurries of great offense and then sometimes some inconsistent offense. And, you got to take the good with the bad.
The approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is totally a fair median outcome for Rafaela because Rafaela, even if he stinks for a month offensively, he's going to get on base just enough. And listen, he's not really going to walk much, but he's going to get on base. If he gets on base at a 250 clip and in his terrible month, he's still going to make things happen on the base paths and limited opportunities that he will have there. And he's probably a better defender than Kike is. And Kike is really good, but like Rafaela is kind of a different level of defender.
Yeah. So 100%. And I think, we talk about median outcome. It's not going to be the best year that Kike Hernandez had. It's like kind of similar to the career that Kike Hernandez had. I think if you look at some of the 70th percentile outcomes of like what you could look for with a Rafaela, I'd look at the 2018 Kike Hernandez season. And I think that's exactly what, you can really hope for on the higher end and exactly what he can do with more bags, Absolutely. As you mentioned.
Yeah. Hunter Goodman, future first baseman of the Colorado Rockies. He's not a catcher. He was drafted as a catcher. He's not a catcher. Figure something out with Tolia. Hunter Goodman is the guy moving forward. This guy hits bombs.
Yeah. We talked about how he's like a cheat code at altitude. And it was a joke. It was like 9 home runs in like 14 games, something stupid like that in AAA. I'm excited to see what he's going to consistently do at the big league level. And that's a guy that I'm glad they brought up.
Real quick on Jordan Wicks, the left-hander with the Chicago Cubs. While we talk, he's making the second start of his career. He looked great in Pittsburgh, and that guy was slicing and dicing. 9 punch outs in his big league debut. Mentioned this on the Just Baseball show. I did not think that Wicks was going to put together 9 punch outs in any outing this year. He does. I saw he had 2 Ks in the second inning in Cincinnati. This changeup, man, like before hitters get acclimated to it, this might be a tough pitch.
Can you believe that is his season high in strikeouts at any level?
Yeah, I can, because he's not a K guy.
Yeah. And he leaned into the changeup. He threw it a lot and dominated with it. And you know what? That elevates the floor. And then the ability to pitch. He just knows how to pitch. And you see anyone around the team says that he has this unwavering confidence. And I told the story on the Just Baseball show that one of my buddies that faced him, battled with him for 13, 14 pitches and eventually worked the walk. And after the inning, Wicks got out of it and literally looked over and was like, hell of an AB, brother. And I'm just like, that's a dude that is so confident, so comfortable out there, and just plays ball. And I think you see that very clearly. You got to be so self-secure and so comfortable in what you're doing on the mound to look over to someone who just grinded you out and say, hell of an AB, man. I got out of it anyways, basically, and back to the dugout and keep shoving.
I saw a video of him at Futures game. I want to say 20.
Oh my God. Yeah. That video is so funny.
LA. Yeah, and it was like, what? It was, I'm blanking on who the 2 pitching prospects were.
It was Chase Petty and somebody else that throws hard. And they're like,
it was a Brave.
Yeah.
Who now is in Oakland A. Cusick.
It was Ryan Cusick. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Petty and Cusick. And they were like, oh, we should have a velo off. And they were like, Jordan, you want in on this? And he said, can we do a changeup off? Like,
it's so
that's
funny,
man. And he's comfortable, and it is a game to him, and he doesn't have a stick up his ass, which I really appreciate.
And he knows himself, it seems like, and that's going to allow you to churn out a lot of quality starts and overperform. This is a dude who overperforms the underlying stats. Let's get that out of the way now. Like Braxton Garrett is, and I think he's got a better changeup. Like Braxton Garrett doesn't have a pitch as good as Jordan Wicks' changeup, but I think he's going to be a guy that outperforms the metrics like a Braxton Garrett type.
I'll give you a final line on Jordan Wicks: 5 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 3 Ks, 3 walks. So he did walk 3, but whatever. He is 2-0 with a 1.80 ERA in his first 2 starts.
Good for him,
so
man.
That's what they needed. Late addition is Alexander Canario, who was a September call-up. And we mentioned Canario as a likely to possible call-up when we kind of ran through rapid fire, and I'm glad to see him do it. And mentioned it very briefly off the top. Like, this is a guy that just factors into the Cubs a little bit better than PCA because he's got tons of juice off the bench. Close your eyes. I see in the next month a big homer in the 8th inning from Canario. Oh, yeah. I just totally do.
100%. And that's what I'm excited for. And this is a guy who, you want to prioritize PCA's development, let him keep getting at bats. Canario is a little bit more patient of a hitter. You mentioned the monstrous power that he gets into in games. He's been going crazy in AAA overall. Slowed down a little bit, but we're talking about a guy that's been hitting plenty of home runs. Perfect piece to add to your bench to maybe platoon spot start here and there. I think this is he's interestingly a reverse splits guy. So yeah. I'm fascinated by how they're going to, go about that with him there. But it is a really nice add, I think, to their situation there on the bench.
It was a Tuesday, Wednesday. I think it was last at bat on Tuesday. Hit a homer the other way at 107 off the bat, 107 to right center. And then the first at bat of the next day, or maybe second at bat of the next day, he went 111 down the left field line to the stratosphere. So this guy is a big exit velo guy. Oh, yeah. In the minor leagues, a couple of guys that we want to run through here, a bunch going to double, but 4 guys going to triple that we identified here. First one is Evan Carter. On his 21st birthday, he got the call up to AAA. Carter's going to get that, brief month-long audition in triple. And do you think he's a break camp candidate next year?
I think he could be. I really do. I guess it depends on the big league situation, and that's going to be the interesting side of it. But the way he's swinging it, I think he's going to finish really strong. This is a guy that probably will find AAA a little bit easier than AA, but I'm glad they're putting him there. And he's off to a ridiculous start. He's got, 7 hits through his first 3 games out there. There's a couple things we talked about in the swing, and it's just very pull dependent that I think could get exposed a bit more at the big league level. And it's amazing that he's able to produce the way that he does with some of the inefficiencies maybe to the swing. But that said, he makes a ton of contact, sneaky power that's going to play up now, where he's at. And I think it's very sneaky to the pull side. So it's trying to balance that, right? How do I be this plus hitter, but also still lean into this above average pop I have to my pull side? And that's what Carter's trying to figure out. I think he gets a little bit too much, to the pull side, and he yanks a little bit too much, takes him out of the zone too quickly. But he's succeeding despite that. Another low chase guy, above average contact guy. And man, he's been awesome so far in AAA. I hope he breaks camp next year.
Yeah, I hope so too. And like, we'll see how they want to move forward with Leotti and with Ezekiel Duran. I think Duran is a utility guy moving forward.
He's that super utility guy. I mean, I think Carter's a better option than Leotti.
I think so too. And Adolis, is factoring in for the long term, and we move forward with that. Yeah, into a corner. He's in right. All right. Three pitchers from the AL Central, but two same org, going from Birmingham to Charlotte. Nick Nastrini and Christian Mena. Nastrini has a bit more pub, I think, understandably so. Nastrini is the much better prospect, and Nastrini has looked really strong since the trade from the Dodgers. He was part of that Lance Lynn deal. He was kind of the headliner there. Reliever Jordan Leisure has been in triple for a good bit.
Wild how things have really clicked for him since the trade. I mean, he had one bad start out of the gate, happens, and then over his last three starts, man, it's not just been the numbers where, I mean, it's been just three straight really good. We're talking 6 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, 10 Ks, 5 innings, 1 run, 2 walks, 7 Ks, 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 9 Ks. I mean, that's 3 straight dominant outings between AA and AAA. The last one was his first AAA start. What really stands out to me is he's commanding the heck out of the bottom of the zone. I mean, he is going in with the fastball, then he's fading away with the changeup, and he is pounding the strike zone. The last 4 starts, 74% strike rate on the fastball, 70% strike rate on the slider. The changeup is just disgusting, man. And Nastrini is a borderline top 100 guy for me now. I mean, just off of what I've been able to see from him. I mean, left-handed hitters against the changeup this year, 139. I mean, and that's the pitch that he throws predominantly, aside from his fastball, to lefties. How about righties? Are they much better? No, they are 154. So that, on top of the fact that he has 2 quality breaking balls that he has decent command of, and now all of a sudden has found this fastball command that has kind of taken him to another level. Look out. I think Nastrini looks like a mid-rotation arm.
Is he going to break camp with the White Sox?
It's funny. Our guy Elijah asked me that. I think yes. I really do, because if he puts together 3-4 more quality starts here and really shows out in spring training, who's stopping him?
No one. It's Kopech and Cease moving forward, and that's kind of it. When you look at starting pitchers, they just called up Luis Patino. They recalled Patino and Jose Rodriguez from Double, the infielder. Kind of interesting that they made that move, but whatever. We'll see how much they use him. Nastrini, man, I think he could break camp as the 3 and hold on to that job for his 6 years of pre-arb and arb. Christian Mena, the other one, and Mena's season numbers don't look great. I will tell you, in August, he was really strong in AA, and he parlayed that into his final start of the month of August, coming in AAA with Charlotte. Christian Mena in August, a 2.5 ERA, 24 2/3 innings. He struck out 26 and walked 7. So Mena was much better. This guy looked thoroughly overmatched by AA hitters at the beginning of the year, even with the tack ball. And now it seems like he's starting to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, we saw him get the big Ks at times with the fastball, had some big time jump, but it just, the command was kind of inconsistent. He'd leave some balls over the middle, and that gave him some trouble. The fastball command has been the issue for him, and I still think it is somewhat of an issue, but a dirty curveball, a good changeup, he commands the curveball pretty well. So it's interesting. He really is more comfortable spinning sometimes than just throwing. And I thought the first AAA start looked good, though. There's definitely some reliever risk there, but he's 20 years old already in AAA. That breaking ball is already enough, I think, to give him a good shot at being a big league reliever. But I do wonder if the command's going to be there to be a big league starter. But at 20 years old in AAA, I think he's really done a good job of kind of expediting the timeline.
And he's thrown a bunch of innings, man. That's the other thing. He's looking at, I want to say, 120 innings so far this year, and he's got the chance for 20 more.
Impressive.
So really impressive. Another guy making the jump from double to triple, and AAA debut was awesome for David Festa with the Twins. The right-hander Festa was a futures game attendee, was a futures game participant for Minnesota. Festa went 5 innings, 4 hits, a run, came on a solo homer, 7 Ks, and 1 walk. Festa was really strong, and this guy is adding to that rotational depth that we talk about with Minnesota all the time, man. You've got Varland and Hedrick and Woods Richardson. They're all sitting in the minor leagues waiting for that shot. Now add Festa to the fold, and Festa might be looking like the best of the bunch.
That's what I was saying. Count me in on Festa. And what's crazy is he's almost a pitch backwards guy, where his slider he's got more confidence in that pitch maybe than anything he's got, which is interesting. Where you look at his last 10 starts, he's thrown the slider 40% of the time, the changeup 26% of the time, and the fastball 34%. So he's throwing the slider more than his fastball, and the changeup nearly as much as his fastball. What's interesting is landing the slider for a strike 71% of the time, landing the fastball for a strike 52% of the time, and the changeup 60%. Changeup's nasty. It's just about consistency there. And I think establishing the fastball would make the changeup better. The action on the changeup in a vacuum is really good. He's 6'6". I think this guy's got special potential if he can find the fastball command. The fact that he is succeeding by masking the fastball is impressive because he throws 96. There's good life to it. He just, for whatever reason, doesn't locate his fastball as well as his changeup and his slider. And if he can get the fastball command to be even average or slightly above, I think this guy could be better than, like you said, better than the whole bunch. It's really exciting.
So I will tell you that like 1s and 2s in Major League Baseball, they work off the fastball. That's just how guys work.
Yeah.
But there are 3s and 4s in Major League Baseball that are slider primary.
Yeah.
And if he's slider, changeup primary, and then he works with a fastball as his third pitch, yes, it's not ace upside stuff because you do need to be able to bully with a fastball if you want to be an ace or a top flight 2 in Major League Baseball. But to be a starting pitcher, you can throw 45% slider. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. And that's why I love the floor. Because I think that the floor already, I think, is Louis Varland type of arm for them that plugs in and plays. And I know they're very different types of pitchers.
I'm a sucker for Varland, though. Dude,
I know. I love Varland. I think he's a big league starter. I really do.
There's so many balls in play early in counts. Like that guy can get through 6 innings with 55 pitches. And like Festa, that's not really him. No. But the guys that are them that do it successfully, I just latch onto, and Varland's one of those guys.
I hear that, man. And the last thing I'll say on Festa is, I mean, it's 96. The fastball is 96. So in the shape, again, is good. If he can find the command of it, that's a pitch mix that can make him another guy that has middle rotation type upside. So I'm a big Festa fan, and it's been exciting to see him get off to that start in trips.
6 guys just got to Double-A. We're going to go through those somewhat rapid fire, but we'll spend some time on Adael Amador. Amador, we just talked about in the top 10 prospects, and I think we did mention that he was getting the bump to Double-A. But Amador is now fully with Double-A. Hartford already has a huge nuke, right? Was it a walk-off homer?
Was it a walk-off?
It was massive. It could have been a walk-off, but it was like bombs away from Adael Amador. So we'll start with Amador, the Rockies prospect and a top 20 prospect in all of baseball, according to Just Baseball. Amador got the bump to Double-A Hartford. Yeah,
it was a big one in the bottom of the 6th, but he drove into, walked in that game. We talked about this is the big test for him because how does that power play there? And I know power is not part of his game, but it determines the ceiling because we already know. I think it's the best bat to ball guy in the minor leagues so far. A hit in each of his games. He's walked multiple times, hasn't struck out much. Pair of stolen bases. I think you've seen everything that you want to see from him so far. And I do think that we're going to start seeing him play second base a lot more, though. I think long term that's going to be his home. But I'm excited. I think he's going to surprise people with a little bit more power than many give him credit for. And I think you do that by going through the Hartford gauntlet in the Rockies system.
I'm fully excited. And they gave McMahon the extension. I'm very, very excited for the near future of Goodman at first, Amador at second, Tovar at short, McMahon at third. I think that is an incredibly watchable Rockies infield.
Fun. I think really fun.
Very fun. Matt Shaw goes to Double-A with the Cubs. He is headed to Knoxville, Tennessee. This guy was he your guy out of the draft? I think you loved him out of the draft, and he's just proving you right.
One of my favorite bats out of the draft, no doubt about it. That was the guy that I showed you video of specifically ahead of the draft. I'm like, that's a guy I wouldn't mind seeing the Marlins go snag or whatever it may be. And I mean, man, he has exceeded even my expectations with the polish. Just hit the ground running in high A, quickly plays his way up to double, hits in both of his first games in double, including a double yesterday at 108 off the bat, by the way. The power is legit. The speed is legit. I don't think he sticks it short. I will continue to say that. But okay, he probably plays second base, maybe a little bit of third, who knows? But that said, this bat is, I think, I thought it was one of the best bats in the draft. That's why he was a top 75 prospect for us before he really hit this stride. It was right out of the draft. And now, I mean, he's playing his way into a top 50 consideration, I think.
Yep. A guy that slid a good bit, slid past Shaw, was Hurston Waldrop. Waldrop fell to the Braves. Listen, man, I know Shonowell. Do you want to eat shit on Shonowell? Nolan Shonowell hitting 320, walking more than he struck out, and has a 10-game hitting streak to open up his MLB career. How do we feel about Nolan Shonowell?
I mean, dude, I love it. It's so awesome. I mean, this guy
it's
was
awesome, but like one extra base hit, like let's pump the. He's got a 460 OBP and he has an 800 OPS. So let's cool it for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how long it lasts. I'm glad that he's, succeeding. I'm sure he's having a blast there. I do have questions about how much power is there for Shonowell, and I think that's still going to be the question. But you know what? For him to lean into his strength the way he has already at the big league level, which is feel to hit and approach, I mean, it's pretty remarkable what he's doing. He's a first baseman though, and like I need my first baseman to hit for power. So while this is awesome, we have to wonder how much is this allowing him to maximize his ceiling, because this is a guy that should be getting comfortable in the minor leagues, then should be learning how to leverage his power a bit more. It's usually, if you have the feel to hit, you got to get confident enough with the feel to hit at more challenging levels to then figure out when you're going to leverage your power a bit more if it doesn't come naturally. And that's not something Shanwell has had the chance to do. Maybe he'll be able to do that this offseason and continue to work to tap into more power, but it is pretty remarkable through 10 games what he's been able to do. Who's
the greatest singles hitting first baseman of all time? Doug Minkiewicz?
It's an interesting profile. It definitely is. But props to him. Real quick on Waldrop. He has definitely been impressive as heck. Like he's been really good.
So impressive.
But he's also been bullying guys with that splitter, and 10 strikeouts and 4 2/3 in his last high A outing. And it was almost every single whiff was with the splitter. That's what he's going to do to ride success and give him pretty much a bullpen floor, is a 96-mile-an-hour fastball and a diabolical splitter.
I think he's already getting outs over an inning or two spurt in the big leagues. I think
with that splitter
exclusive, I think he gets through a clean 8th inning in the major leagues right now.
Yeah. My question is AA, how do the fastball and the slider play? We'll find out. But I agree with you. His floor, I think, if it's not working as a starter, I think we could see him in a big league bullpen next year if they decide to shift the gears
in October.
That splitter's special.
Yeah, it can't be in October because he's not added to the 40-man at this point. He is not eligible for the postseason roster. Spencer Jones to AA with the Yankees. Jones was having a really relatively tough year with Hudson Valley and high A, but Jones started to really kick it into gear over the last month or so. And this is, his chance to kind of have upward mobility at the end of the 2023 season instead of, I spent the entire year in high A.
Yeah. And this was a guy I was extremely excited about going into the year. I still am excited about him as a prospect. And I think we've seen him settle in a little bit more at the AA level at points, but then you get you feel like he's settling in, and then you get the hat trick, and then he seems to have a better game again, and then you get the hat trick. So it's like, it's been a little frustrating, but I do like finishing the year at AA and kind of going back to the drawing board a little bit after this year to just try to figure out how to cut the whiff down. I don't think the whiff is that egregious in terms of the overall numbers. It's more challenges with, a slider or like a hard breaking ball that's been, kind of leaving him exposed. If he can figure out how to, again, these long lever guys, that seems to be the case, is breaking balls. Just, you see O'Neal Cruz, you see Ellie De La Cruz. It's hard to stay on them. And sometimes you swing over them consistently. That's something that he's going to have to figure out, and fortunately Aaron Judge is a pretty good template in that organization, who maybe, could work with him a little bit. In spring training and see, but the power potential is special. 109 mile per hour, 90th percentile. If he can continue to cut down on the chase, he has been cutting down on the Ks overall. I still am optimistic.
Got you. 3 more guys to go over. 2 AA, 1 high A. Jacob Melton with the Astros. He is a Corpus Christi hook now. Your thoughts?
Melton's fun. I think Melton is one of those guys that if you cover the Astros, he's not underrated. He might almost be overrated because I think Astros fans love him and think he's a top 100.
I love him over Gilbert. I liked him over Clifford.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they love him over Gilbert now. He's an awesome player in terms of the upside. We're talking about the blend of speed, raw power, the ability to kind of play in the outfield a little bit. And I think the upside's monstrous, but there's a lot more risk than a Drew Gilbert type. So it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches and adjusts to AA, because I do think it's going to be a challenge for him, similarly to Spencer Jones, another guy who just seems to struggle with good breaking balls at this juncture.
Yeah. How about Parada? Parada's always kind of intrigued me because it seems like he's a good defender. I haven't seen much from him in Brooklyn. Like, I had no idea what he was doing, quite frankly. And Parada got the bump to Binghamton. Good for him. Like, I don't know, man. He's just been such a Robin, and this isn't a knock on him. He's just been such a Robin to Francisco Alvarez's Batman. He's almost like the forgettable piece. Like, you got one catching prospect there, you don't need 2.
Yeah.
And Cartaya, similar situation with the Dodgers. Like, Cartaya's just kind of fallen by the wayside because Dalton Rushing is the catching prospect now.
Yeah. I don't love the glove as much as, I was hoping it would develop a little bit more, and it hasn't, and it's put more pressure on the bat. And I do think that the power was suppressed in Brooklyn. I mean, that is a consistent wind blowing in. And if you look at park factors, it's one of the harder places to hit the ball out. But we're talking about a 72% zone contact rate and a 32% chase rate for Parada. That paired with the defensive limitations at catcher, which puts more pressure on the bat. I'm pretty concerned about this guy and his profile. It looks like more of a first base profile. It looks like there's a lot of whiff there. And I don't know how it all kind of comes together for him. It's either going to be Hunter Goodman type power output or make massive strides behind the dish, which I think is less likely. So the path to success for him is doing something that 1 or 2 guys do a year, which is just explode offensively like Hunter Goodman. I'm pretty worried about Parada long term.
Yeah. And then last guy here real quick is Xavier Isaac, who got the bump from low A to high A with the Tampa Bay Rays. And I know you love Isaac. He's a top 100 prospect. Will be interesting to see him get, I think it's 2 weeks left in the high A season, 2 weeks left of advanced pitching.
Yeah. I mean, and he's responded extremely well so far. 2 home runs the other night, which, I mean, to already be doing that in high A is so impressive. 20 at-bats, 23 plate appearances. He's only struck out 3 times. He's walked 3 times. He has 3 home runs. That is remarkable for a guy that's a high school dude, missed his senior season, 19 years old, 6'4", getting brought up to high A. Like, I think he's just scraping the surface of the field to hit side of things that are going to continue to get better for him. The power's outrageous. For a guy like him to be a top 100 prospect, it's real tough because we don't rank a lot of first basemen. You got to have some special offensive upside, and that's exactly what Isaac has.
Yep. Big time, man. That's it from us.
Yeah, well, glad we could kind of catch up on the promotions. Hope you enjoyed this bonus little Saturday episode. Jack, we got 1 more month really of the minor league season. I know it's kind of one of those spots here where we can see a lot of guys carry momentum as we finish it out. So New assignments, where these guys go. I think we might get one more little round of promotion. So we'll try to keep you briefed on that. We'll talk about how some of these guys have done in their debuts, and then we'll probably do a draft check-in relatively soon. Just kind of seeing on how some of the recent draftees are performing in the early going. Wyatt Langford, by the way, hit 112 the other day. And Carson Williams hit 113.5, which is also crazy. Both those were home runs. There's some fun things to talk about around those guys. So we'll be talking about some of the recent draft guys. I know Carson Williams isn't one, but I had to mention the 113 from him is nuts. And Wyatt Langford's been awesome to watch. So looking forward to doing that. We'll talk to you then. Have a great weekend.